August 13th, 1943, 7:47 a.m. Approaching Willow Run, Michigan, the press bus rounded the final curve, and Fritz Kuhn's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. A building stretched across the Michigan landscape like a steel wall laid on its side, so long that morning fog obscured its far end. The structure seemed to violate the laws of architecture, defying belief that human beings had built something this massive. "Ladies and gentlemen," the Ford representative announced cheerfully, "welcome to Willow Run, the largest room in the world." Kuhn set down his cup carefully, afraid his shaking hands might spill it. He had come to America 6 months ago with forged Swiss press credentials and orders from German military intelligence: assess American war production and report the truth to Berlin. Every intelligence estimate from Germany suggested the Americans were exaggerating their capabilities. Propaganda, psychological warfare. Nobody could actually produce weapons at the rates the Americans claimed. Kuhn had believed that. He had toured British factories in 1940, cramped, bomb-damaged facilities desperately improvising around shortages. He expected something similar in America, perhaps on a larger scale, but fundamentally the same. Skilled craftsmen struggling with limited resources, producing modest numbers of weapons through heroic effort. The building before him suggested he had been catastrophically wrong. "How long is it?" asked one of the American reporters, scribbling notes. 3,200 feet, the Ford man answered. "Over half a mile, 1.28 million square feet of factory floor under one roof. We employ 42,000 workers here in 3 shifts. The building never sleeps." Kuhn did the mental arithmetic automatically, a skill drilled into him during intelligence training. The largest German aircraft factory he'd toured, Messerschmitt's Regensburg facility, was perhaps 1/3 this size, and Regensburg was considered enormous. "What do you build here?" The question came from a Canadian journalist. The Ford representative smiled. It was the smile of a man about to deliver a punchline he'd delivered 100 times before, and it never got old. B-24 Liberator heavy bombers, 4 engines, 10-man crew, 8,000-pound bomb load. We complete one every 63 minutes. The bus fell silent. Kuhn heard someone's pen drop. "I'm sorry," said the Swedish reporter carefully. "Could you repeat that?" "One complete aircraft every 63 minutes. That's our current production rate. We're actually aiming to get it down to 55 minutes by year's end." Kuhn felt something cold settle in his chest. 1 bomber per hour, 24 per day, nearly 170 per week, over 700 per month, from one factory, one single factory in a country that had never been bombed, whose supply lines had never been cut, whose workers went home to houses that still had roofs. The bus pulled into a visitor's parking area. As Kuhn stepped off, he noticed something that made his breath catch. The employee parking lot stretched into the distance, packed with thousands of personal automobiles belonging to the workers. In Germany, a personal car was a luxury for the wealthy. Here, factory workers drove their own vehicles to jobs building bombers. This wasn't just about aircraft production. This was about a nation with wealth beyond German comprehension. Inside the Colossus, the tour group entered through a side door, and Kuhn found himself on an observation platform overlooking the main assembly floor. What he saw there would haunt him for the rest of his life. B-24 Liberators in various stages of assembly stretched into the distance like a metal river flowing toward completion. The aircraft moved continuously through stations on an assembly line that seemed to go on forever. But it wasn't the size that made Kuhn's hands start trembling. It was the system, the precision, the mechanical inevitability of it all. Station 1. Fuselage sections joined together with explosive rivet guns, operated by workers who looked barely out of high school. Station 2. Wing assemblies, massive aluminum structures, each weighing thousands of pounds, lowered into place by overhead cranes with ballet-like precision. Station 3, 4 Pratt & Whitney R1830 engines, each producing 1,200 horsepower, mounted to the wings in an operation that took 30 minutes per engine. 30 minutes. Kuhn knew that mounting a similar engine in a German aircraft required a full day of careful work by trained technicians. Here, workers with a few weeks of training did it in 30 minutes, and the engines fit perfectly every time, because every component was manufactured to tolerances of thousandths of an inch. "How is this possible?" Kuhn whispered to himself in German, forgetting for a moment that he was supposed to be a Swiss journalist. "Excuse me?" The Ford representative had sharp ears. Kuhn switched smoothly to English. "I said, how is this level of production possible? In Europe, we think of aircraft as precision instruments built by master craftsmen." "That's the old way," the Ford man said. "Mr. Ford proved with the Model T that you don't need master craftsmen. You need a master system. We've applied the same principles to aircraft. Every part is standardized, interchangeable, manufactured to precise specifications. A wing built here fits a fuselage built at our Rouge plant. The workers don't need to be craftsmen. They need to follow precise, repeatable processes." He gestured at the line. "See that woman there?" He pointed at a young woman installing what looked like a hydraulic manifold assembly. 6 months ago, she'd never held a wrench. 2 weeks of training, and now she performs that operation faster and more accurately than a German master technician with 20 years of experience. Not because she's better, because the system is better. Kuhn watched the woman work. Her movements were confident, economical, practiced. The manifold assembly clicked into place. She tested it with a handheld gauge, nodded with satisfaction, and the aircraft moved to the next station. The whole operation took 8 minutes. In a German factory, that job would require an hour of careful work, constant checking, adjustment, and fitting. The Germans built each aircraft as if it were a unique creation. The Americans built aircraft like they built automobiles, identical, interchangeable, endless. "Let me show you something," the Ford representative said, leading the group to a side room. Inside, components were laid out on tables: engines, propellers, landing gear assemblies, instrument panels. Everything you see here is a spare part. We keep thousands of each component in inventory. If a part is damaged during assembly, we simply replace it. No custom fabrication, no fitting, no delays. Pop out the old part, pop in the new one, keep moving. Kuhn approached a table displaying engine components. The machining was perfect, the tolerances precise. These weren't rough field expedient parts. These were precision components mass-produced to exacting standards. "How many B-24s will you build this year?" Kuhn asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "We're projected for about 4,500 here at Willow Run," the Ford man answered, though that number keeps going up as we optimize the line. 4,500 aircraft from one factory. Germany's entire aircraft industry, all types combined, all manufacturers, had produced about 15,000 aircraft in 1942. This single American factory was producing 1/3 of Germany's total output, building just one type of bomber. "What about other B-24 facilities?" Kuhn asked. "Oh, we're not the only ones. Consolidated has plants in San Diego and Fort Worth. Douglas has Tulsa. North American has Dallas. Between all of us, we'll probably deliver around 8,000 B-24s this year. Plus there's all the other aircraft, B-17s, B-25s, B-26, fighters, transports, trainers. Total U.S. aircraft production is running over 8,000 planes per month now. 8,000 aircraft monthly, 96,000 annually. Germany would be fortunate to build 25,000 in 1943. America was producing 4 times that number, and unlike Germany, American factories weren't being bombed. Production was accelerating, not declining. Kuhn excused himself to use the restroom. Inside a stall, he leaned against the wall and tried to control his breathing. The mathematics were becoming clear, and they were horrifying. Germany couldn't shoot down American aircraft faster than America could build them. Even if the Luftwaffe achieved 10-to-1 kill ratios, the numbers didn't work. Quality was irrelevant when quantity was this overwhelming. The democracy of war production. After a bathroom break, the tour continued to the wing assembly section. Kuhn watched a team of workers, mostly women, assembling massive wing structures using rivet guns mounted on spring-loaded arms. The noise was tremendous, the pace relentless, the precision remarkable. During a pause in the line for a shift change, Kuhn approached one of the riveters, a woman in her early 20s wearing coveralls and safety glasses. He used his journalist cover to strike up conversation. "How long have you been doing this work?" he asked. "Since March," she answered, pulling off her gloves. "About 5 months. They trained me for 3 weeks, then put me on the line. It was tough at first, but you get the rhythm pretty quick." "What did you do before the war?" "Worked at Woolworth's," she said, lighting a cigarette. 5 and dime store in Detroit. Sold socks and kitchen stuff. Never thought I'd be building bombers, but here we are. Pays better than retail, I'll tell you that. 5 months, 3 weeks of training. This woman who'd sold socks 6 months ago was now performing precision structural work on aircraft. And according to the production numbers, she was doing it faster and more reliably than trained German technicians. The secret wasn't the workers, it was the system. Ford had broken down aircraft manufacturing into hundreds of simple, repeatable operations. Every tool was purpose-built for a specific task. Every jig was designed to eliminate human error. The workers weren't craftsmen, they were components in a larger machine, a machine designed to produce aircraft with relentless efficiency. "Do you know what these bombers are for?" Kuhn asked carefully. The woman exhaled smoke and looked at him steadily. "They're going to bomb Germany. My brother's in the Army Air Forces, navigator on a B-17. He writes me letters about what he sees over there. So yeah, I know exactly what I'm building, and I'm proud of it. Every rivet I drive is a rivet bringing my brother home safe." Kuhn thanked her and walked away, feeling something crack inside him. These people weren't just building aircraft. They were building them with purpose, with pride, with the absolute certainty that their industrial power would win the war. And they were right. The conversation that changed everything lunch was served in the workers' cafeteria, another revelation, as German workers typically brought their own food. Kuhn sat with a shift supervisor named Robert Jennings, a friendly man in his 40s who seemed happy to discuss production details with a foreign journalist. "Can I ask you something honestly?" Kuhn said, abandoning journalist caution. "How is any of this possible? The scale, the speed, the precision. In Europe, we thought these production numbers were propaganda." Jennings laughed. "Yeah, I heard the Germans don't believe it. Can't say I blame them. Sounds impossible if you haven't seen it. But it's real. It's all about the system, the planning, the investment. Mr. Ford spent 2 years and $65 million building this place. We had problems at first. Only made like 60 planes in all of 42. But once we got the line balanced, once all the suppliers synchronized, once the workers got trained up, it just runs. Like a machine. Because it is a machine." He took a bite of his sandwich. "What really kills me is the waste we used to accept. In the old days, hell, 3 years ago, we'd spend hours fitting parts that didn't quite match. Now, if a part doesn't fit, we don't fix it, we replace it. Got warehouses full of spares. It's faster to replace than repair, so that's what we do." "What percentage of workers here were skilled aircraft technicians before the war?" Kuhn asked. "Maybe 5%? Most came from auto plants, retail, farms, wherever. We trained them in weeks. That's the genius of the system. You don't need skilled workers if the process is designed right. Kuhn leaned forward. Be honest with me. What do you think this means for the war? Jennings set down his sandwich and looked Kuhn in the eye. I think Germany's in trouble, big trouble. I don't say that because I hate Germans. I got German ancestry myself. Grandparents came from Bavaria. But the math doesn't lie. We're producing more planes in a month than Germany produces in a quarter. And we're just getting started. Wait until all the new factories come online. Wait until we really hit our stride. This war's going to be won in places like this, not on battlefields. We're going to bury them in equipment. Does that bother you? Kuhn asked. The lives that will be lost? Hell yes, it bothers me, Jennings said quietly. My son's in the Pacific. Every time I rivet a bomber together, I think about him. But I also think about ending this war as fast as possible. And the fastest way to end it is to produce so many weapons that the other side gives up. That's what we're doing. We're not just building bombers. We're building surrender. The moment of complete understanding. The tour's final stop was the materials warehouse. Kuhn walked among stacks of aluminum ingots 3 stories high, copper wire on spools 12 feet in diameter, steel sheets waiting to be formed, rubber stockpiles from South American plantations. The volume of raw materials was staggering. More aluminum in this one warehouse than Germany's entire monthly aircraft industry allocation. Where does it all come from? Kuhn asked the Ford representative. Everywhere. Aluminum from Tennessee, Washington, Quebec, steel from Pittsburgh and Gary, copper from Montana and Chile. We've got contracts with over 40,000 suppliers across North America. Most shipments arrive by rail, 50, 60 freight cars per day, bringing materials in, another 20 taking finished aircraft and parts out. 40,000 suppliers. An entire continent's industrial capacity focused on producing war materials. Germany was fighting a war with the resources of Germany. America was fighting with the resources of North America, South America, and much of the rest of the world. Kuhn walked outside to clear his head. The employee parking lot sprawled before him, thousands upon thousands of personal automobiles. Workers were just arriving for the afternoon shift, pulling into spaces, chatting with colleagues as they headed toward the entrance. A nation where factory workers owned automobiles possessed industrial capacity beyond German imagination. Those cars represented an economy producing millions of consumer goods, even while simultaneously producing war materials at overwhelming scale. America hadn't converted to war production. It had added war production on top of its existing consumer economy. Germany was fighting total war with a strained economy. America was fighting total war with an economy that was thriving. The realization hit Kuhn like a physical blow. Germany had already lost. Not in the future. It had lost the moment it started fighting an opponent with unlimited industrial capacity. Every battle won, every city taken, every tactical victory was meaningless against an enemy that could replace losses faster than they could be inflicted. The report nobody would believe that night in his hotel room. Kuhn wrote his report to Berlin. He worked for 4 hours trying to capture not just the facts, but the implications, struggling to convey a truth so enormous that he knew nobody would believe it. His hands shook as he encoded the message. August 13, 1943, Willow Run Facility Assessment. All previous intelligence estimates of American production capacity are catastrophically underestimated. Confirmed production rate, 1 B-24 heavy bomber every 63 minutes, 24 hours daily. Annual output from this single facility, approximately 4,500 heavy bombers, equivalent to 1/3 of Germany's total 1942 aircraft production. Critical findings. Workforce primarily unskilled labor trained in 2 to 3 weeks. complete component standardization and interchangeability. Raw material supplies appear effectively unlimited. Zero supply chain constraints observed. System designed for expansion, not maximum current output. This is one facility among dozens of similar scale. Total U.S. aircraft production estimated 8,000 plus units monthly, 4 times German annual output. Urgent assessment. German tactical superiority is strategically irrelevant against this production scale. Victory is mathematically impossible. Every day of continued conflict works to enemy advantage. Recommendation: immediate pursuit of negotiated settlement while bargaining position exists. Kuhn stared at what he'd written. It read like insanity, like the ravings of someone who'd lost touch with reality. But every word was true. He'd seen it with his own eyes, touched the aircraft, spoken to the workers, verified the numbers. He transmitted the message through his handler in neutral Sweden and sat back, exhausted. Berlin would receive it within days. They would analyze it, compare it to other intelligence, assess its credibility. And they would decide he'd been compromised by the enemy, that these numbers were impossible, that this was sophisticated Allied psychological warfare designed to demoralize German intelligence services, because the truth was too enormous to accept. The tragic denial Kuhn's report reached Berlin's Abwehr headquarters on August 18, 1943. Intelligence analysts compared his claims against previous assessments and current strategic assumptions. The numbers seemed fantastic, impossible. One factory producing as much as a third of Germany's entire aircraft industry, workers trained in weeks doing jobs requiring years of German apprenticeship. The assessment went up the chain. Major Graf von Sternberg, a career intelligence officer, reviewed the report with increasing skepticism. He called a meeting of his analysis team. "Gentlemen, either Agent Kuhn has been turned by American intelligence, or he's observed an elaborate deception. These production figures are physically impossible. Germany's industrial capacity, the finest in Europe, cannot match what Kuhn claims one American factory produces. The logical conclusion is that the Americans showed him a propaganda facility." "What if it's real?" asked a junior analyst. "Then we've already lost," von Sternberg said flatly. "So it can't be real. Send this to the Ministry of Propaganda for assessment. Mark it as probable disinformation." Joseph Goebbels reviewed the report personally, his handwritten notation, preserved in archives. Transparent Allied fabrication, production figures impossible for any nation. Agent clearly compromised or deceived. File as enemy propaganda example. The report was classified secret and buried in files where it would gather dust until Allied forces captured German intelligence archives in 1945. Kuhn sent 3 more reports over the following months describing Sherman tank production at Chrysler, 2 tanks per day per facility, B-17 production at Boeing, 1 aircraft every 90 minutes, and Liberty ship construction, 3 ships per day from American shipyards. Each report was received with growing skepticism. By December 1943, Berlin had concluded that Agent Fritz Kuhn was either incompetent or compromised. His reports were no longer considered credible intelligence. The end of one truth-teller. FBI counterintelligence identified Kuhn as a probable German agent in March 1944. The arrest was quiet, no publicity, no drama. He was classified as an enemy alien, interrogated briefly, and transferred to a detention facility in Crystal City, Texas. During interrogation, Kuhn made no attempt to deny his identity or mission. He seemed almost relieved to be caught. "I did my job," he told the FBI interrogator. "I reported the truth. They didn't believe me. That's not my failure. It's theirs." "Why do you think they didn't believe you?" the interrogator asked. Kuhn smiled sadly. "Because accepting the truth meant accepting defeat. Nobody wants to accept they've already lost. So they decided I was lying or crazy or compromised. Anything except accepting that Germany chose to fight a war it mathematically couldn't win. When did you personally accept it? About 4 hours into my Willow Run tour, Kuhn said. I saw that assembly line, watched aircraft moving through like products on a grocery store conveyor, heard that production rate, 1 per hour, forever, and I knew. Germany was already dead. We just hadn't stopped moving yet. The interrogator closed his notebook. You'll spend the rest of the war in detention. Probably go home in 46 or 47 once repatriation is sorted out. I won't go back, Kuhn said. What's there to go back to? A country that chose comfortable lies over uncomfortable truth? No, thank you. The mathematics that proved him right. By May 1945, when Germany surrendered, the numbers had vindicated everything Kuhn had reported. Willow Run produced 8,685 B-24 Liberators, nearly half of all B-24s built during the war. Total American aircraft production, approximately 300,000 military aircraft. Germany produced 119,000. America alone outproduced all Axis nations combined. American tank production, 88,410 units. Germany, 67,429. Many so complex they frequently broke down. Liberty ships, 2,610 vessels, more tonnage than Germany's entire navy. The war hadn't been decided on battlefields. It had been decided in factories on assembly lines by workers who'd never built weapons before, but who worked in systems designed for infinite replication. Germany had chosen to fight an industrial war against the world's industrial superpower. The outcome had been predetermined from the start. A final note from history. Fritz Kuhn was released in December 1945. He chose to remain in America, changed his name, found work as a technical translator, and lived quietly in Chicago until his death in 1977. In his personal papers discovered after his death was a final diary entry dated April 1945. Germany has surrendered. The war is over. I tried to tell them 3 years ago that it was already over, that the numbers made victory impossible. They called me a liar or a fool. I wasn't lying. I was just reporting a truth too terrible to accept. That scale is a weapon, that quantity has a quality all its own, that modern war is won in factories rather than battlefields. I saw America's secret weapon at Willow Run. It wasn't a super bomber or wonder weapon. It was Ford's assembly line multiplied across a continent that had never known bombing or invasion. That was enough. That was more than enough. The building at Willow Run still stands, though much has been demolished. What remains is a museum, a monument to industrial power that won World War II. But no museum can fully capture what Fritz Kuhn witnessed that August day in 1943, the moment when he understood that wars are won not by soldiers or generals, but by supply chains, assembly lines, and the terrible mathematics of mass production. It was a truth too large to believe, even when it was absolutely inescapably real.